Hey everybody, welcome back to Factorio. We're back to cover another 4-hour stream's worth of progress here on our home planet, Nauvis. What you're looking at right now is the aftermath of the first stream, and as you can probably tell, it's definitely a starter base. With it, we did manage to unlock bots, which is going to make the next 100 hours or so much easier. But before we get into what we did over the next 5 hours, if you wanted a recap of the first stream, you can find both a short video and the full VOD linked on the channel below. But with that all being said, let's see how much progress we can make in another 5-hour stream. So one of the first things we did was set up a beautiful logistics request for our inventory management. And the new update of Space Age has given us this beautiful organization where we can actually turn off individual requests. Like right now, I don't have trashing enabled, but if I enabled it, you can see it pulls wood and sulfur into my trash lots. And then the logistics bots will come and take it from me. So the objective of this stream was to create the real base, capable of producing a respectable 1.5 science per second, or 90 per minute without beacons and modules. The first step to all of this is raw resources. This first iron patch which we're setting up now has a cool 27 million iron ready to be plundered. We can get 10 belts of iron ore out of this patch, which we're going to compress into 8 with 2 5-to-4 balances. We'll plug that into the train stop. And there we are. Next up is the copper patch right next to the iron patch. We have our tileable mining blueprint, which we can just smear all over these ore patches. We're going to get a clean 8 belts of copper ore out of this patch, which will balance, plug it into the train station, and call it a day. So, we've been expanding our bot network, our mining capabilities, and our train network. But there's something that we've forgotten about. Power. We are now in a power death spiral, but because I was so far away from the boilers, I've come back to just the death. So to fix this, I'll redo the mining patch. Double the boiler setup. And set up a power switch to turn off the base's power when coal is running low. This will stop any future power death spirals where the base draws so much power that the miners start to produce less and less coal, which starves the boilers and eventually starves the turbines, and we run out of power. And now with power sorted, we finally get to set up the train unloading stations for all of the raw resources. It took me way too long to design this train stacker, but now that we have it blueprinted, we can just stamp it down 5 times and get ready to build the base. So next up is capturing a huge coal patch. This patch has just over 10 million ore, so it will last us a really long time. We're going to get 6 belts out of this mine, so we'll balance that to 4, load it onto a train, and send it off. The final solid raw resource to be claimed for now is going to be stone. This patch is right next to the coal patch, but I decided to make a separate stop for absolutely no reason. This patch gives a disgusting 7 belts of output, so I've just used an 8-to-4 lane balancer to load it onto the train. Now that we have iron, copper, stone, and coal, we need a way to unload them, and choosing an unloading design is relatively important. So I've decided to use a design with no buffer chests. And this is because I have a stacker with capacity for 5 trains in total. And I believe that the slight delay in resource saturation won't matter with the amount of trains coming in, but this may change in the future if we start consuming at full capacity. For iron unloading, we're going to try and get 8 full belts off the train, using these undergrounds to make sure we can fully saturate our steel build. We're then just going to copy that unloading station for 3 of our other resources and take our massive bus over to where we're going to make the real base. And have a look at this poor iron belt in our starter base. It's barely enough to even continue production of yellow belts. But now it's time to start designing the forges. Now originally I wanted to try something new and go for groups of 6 forges per power pole and use a more compact design with long-handed inserters outputting onto a single belt running down the middle with a single belt of fuel. But I eventually scrapped that for a more traditional design with 4 furnaces per power pole and light combination, outputting onto a single belt with mixed fuel and ore belts on the outside. I then capped it off with our ore and fuel importer, copied the monomer to make 48 total furnaces per stack, and our design is finalized. And now we get to stamp the blueprint down. 4 lanes for copper, 4 lanes for iron, 8 lanes for steel, and then we'll paste down 2 half stacks for stone, because we're going to want 1 lane of stone bricks and 2 lanes of stone in the future. We'll also just route our 4 belts of coal where the main bus is going to be, ready for military science and plastic. And then we actually get to route all of the belts into the furnaces. Since we've stupidly unloaded the trains in the wrong order, we have to cross a bunch of them over each other. And since the first stack is copper, but the first and second belts are coal and stone respectively, we end up with these beautiful crisscross patterns. But just look at it, it was definitely worth it. And don't forget to add automatic train refueling, otherwise we would have some serious problems. We're just going to leech that from the coal input bus. Train scheduling is easy. Since we're going to be using common station names like coal in and coal out, a simple setup of unload until empty and load until full will work just fine. And now let's just watch some resources slowly trickle in. Yes, it really did take this long for me to realize that the inserters were placed incorrectly. So let's fix that. And now we finally get to watch the stack being built and turning on. You know the saying, nature finds a way? Well, so do engineers. And when nature gets in the way, well, you get war. So, you've just finished the raw resource production. What's the first thing you do with it? Do you A. Start the main bus, B. Spaghetti your way to space, or C. Make the same mistake from the previous base and rush to make a temporary belt build and neglect the rest of the base? If you get C, then congrats, you're just as dumb as I am. So, here's the first build with our new supplies. It's a belt factory, so we can actually finish our builds with any level of speed. Because we still actually have to get to space. And mere moments after finishing up this belt factory, I start planning the main bus around the build. Clearly, I've seen the error of my ways and I'm ready to remove the build and move it elsewhere. So now we finally get to start using the resources we're making. The first thing I want to make is green circuits, given their ubiquity. For this base, I've decided to attempt to make every build 7 tiles wide so that I can fit beacons either side. Now I have no idea if this will come back to bite me later, but for now, everything is going to be compact and easily beaconable. Since we're planning for beacons, we're going to use direct insertion of copper cables into the green circuit assemblers. Because once we get productivity modules and speed modules, the ratio ekes closer to a 1-to-1 rather than a usual 3-to-2. So as you've seen, we've just made a single block. We're going to then paste that 5 times to make a single unit, and then we're going to make that 4 more times so that we can saturate a red belt eventually. Plugging in the belts is pretty easy and aesthetic, and once the bots finish the build, we have green circuits finished. At scale. And once circuits have been automated, we can now redesign our belt factory and have splitters on there as well. This is going to be the beating heart of our expansion efforts, so we're placing it at the beginning of the bus so it gets priority over our iron supply. And there it is, working beautifully. So with the creation of our green circuit build, we've accidentally created a blueprint for most of the simple products we can make in Factorio. So we can just copy the design for red science, as we can just directly input the gear into the assembler. This build will make 1.5 science per second unbeaconed, and we'll see how good it gets when we unlock more technology. And for green science, we'll use the design to make inserters and belts, but after that we can just stamp down as many assemblers as we need, because we'll combine the inputs onto a single belt. So next up is military science, and originally I wanted to make it all in one row, but I realized it would be insanely long. So the new plan is to have 2 rows. The first row is just to make ammunition, which we can definitely use elsewhere for defense. We can then use the design to directly insert grenades into the military science assembler because they have roughly similar crafting times. We can then paste the design 5 times to make 1.5 military science per second. Also, did you know that I haven't even set up the stone mine properly? So here we are actually loading it onto a train. And here is the wall build for military science. I'm just going to put it straight off the stone brick build. Next up on the list is red circuits. These are slightly more complicated because we don't want to direct insert copper cable, although in hindsight that is definitely easier. We'll make 2 copper wire assemblers at the start and 12 red circuit assemblers after those, which should net us 1.5 circuits per second, which we'll copy that 5 times to get a total of 7.5 per second. Not nearly enough, but good enough for now. This will be one of the first builds we beacon. And so finally, after all this time, we can rebuild oil processing. I'm pretty ashamed to say that the build in the starter base was so bad, I just reverted to the old way of building refineries. We'll also add lubricant production, as well as a huge amount of cracking. Then as easy as that all went up, we will make rocket fuel. Then we'll create a large sulfur build. And voila, our oil build as well as the second stream has been completed. So another 5 hours down and we've made a good amount of progress, which is funny because we didn't really do anything that we didn't do in the first stream, but I think you can live with that. thank you all for watching. I've been really enjoying the streaming, and it's been great to have so many people coming along for the ride. Next stream, and I can say this because it's already happened, we finally made it to space. So if you want to see that and more, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like these videos. Your feedback helps me make the best content for your hungry eyeballs. And with that all being said, I'll see you next time.